Hey, Nation, Harry here, and we are continuing to double-click here early in Q2 into the whole COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic matter, especially as it relates to small businesses and the technology supply chain. So I am with longtime SMB Nation member Vince Gable out of Tampa Bay, Florida. Sir, been too long. I'm sorry that we have to meet under such circumstances.
And I too, Harry. I mean, I can recall the first time I met you at a SMB SBS 2003 conference in Tampa and was jumping for joy.
It's been a heck of a run. Quickly, you recently were trying to be less involved in the MSP or IT consulting community, and you got a little your trigger finger got a little itchy. You're back in the game, and you're helping out an institution, I understand. What's going on? And then we'll get to the main point of the PPP.
Harry, that's an awfully nice way of saying I'm getting old and retired and decided to jump back in the game. What a guy. You have a way with words. But yeah, that's exactly what happened. I was getting a little bored and on the sidelines, and from an SMB standpoint, I didn't want to start my business up again. So I started looking for opportunities on a part-time basis and was invited to join this organization. So
okay.
I'm pleased to be here. And I joined just at the time the coronavirus hit.
Yeah. And it sounds like that you're keeping both hands in the technology field and helping them set up remote workers and IT support. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's a very good assumption. Yeah, this is indoctrination through fire.
Yeah,
the organization.
There you go. Well, Vince, you've been leading the conversation up on email, quite frankly, with the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP. What's the story? Because you've spent some time researching it.
Well, I was concerned as to how this was going to impact small business. And again, you and I go way back. Small business has been my love and passion for the past 15 years. And I wanted to see how this was going to impact the current customers that I had few of, but more importantly, all small businesses. And so I started researching it. And of course, I was able to, I contacted my congressman, and he was kind enough to put me into the conference call loop that he's been having. And also, in addition to that, he's forwarded to me, I guess what we can call hot off the press data coming out of Washington. So, as I've received that, I've been perusing it, examining it, and as you know, passing it on to key personnel that I know. Mm-hmm. It appears that it's a pretty, well, it's a very comprehensive plan for America. And the $1,400 that each of us will be receiving, which I don't believe has hit anybody's checking account yet, mm-hmm. Is going to be the government's compensation for saying, stay home.
Okay.
So I thank our government for that. It's a very nice bonus, if you may. Mm-hmm. But that certainly didn't help the small business community.
Correct.
With that said, in that bundle was the small business loans that were available to small business. Of course, the feds are backing all this. And I had I'm going to take this opportunity to suggest something that the or state something that I had suggested to my congressman and actually made a post on Facebook about, that I thought that the most effective way to get the dollars in the hands of people that counted the most would have been if the federal government had allowed the insurance companies to waive their waiver on these pandemics in their business interruption clauses. And then let the insurance companies fund the businesses, and then the businesses in turn fund the employees or pay the employees.
It's a good idea. It's a good idea.
And then with the Federal Reserve backing, okay, let the feds back the insurance companies. The insurance companies have the liquidity to disperse funds rapidly, okay?
Yeah.
And of course, they know the bank accounts of the businesses that they serve. So it would have been a very quick way to get things into the system, or to get dollars into the bloodline, if you may, without all this government rigmarole.
Yeah.
So that's my
good idea.
Okay. But I did pass that on both to my senators and my congressmen, which I don't know, kind of fell on a mood ear, I guess, but they have their priorities in Washington. So where we're at,
where we're at. Then I have a couple questions.
Okay, is that the Small Business Administration is assured the banks and the community banks and the credit unions and everybody else that they're going to back these loans. There's been some question as to what type of information the financial institutions, i.e. banks, are asking from their customers. And that seems to be a problem too. There's a bottleneck there. Every small business is supposed to be able to walk into any bank and apply for one of these loans and get instant approval.
And this is the PPP specifically.
Yes, this is the PPP.
Okay.
And there seems to be a bottleneck there, and it seems to be that the lending institutions have modified their credit applications to suit their needs. So I guess there's some things going on. I haven't in the last few days looked into that specifically, but it appears that they've remedied that situation and they're improving that throughput for small business.
Of course, is just overwhelming.
Yeah, and the amount of money they're dispersing in the billions of dollars is to my way of thinking, is just mind-boggling. But
well, it is, and I encourage the listeners of SMB Nation to take advantage of the programs that make sense, but then avoid the ones that don't. And here's what I mean. I'm double clicking down into the PPP program for SMB Nation, so that's not a surprise. I have a fiduciary obligation to myself to do that.
Sure.
I looked at some of the other lending programs and I had a talk with myself. I looked in the mirror, Vince, and I said, "Self, these other programs, they're actually loans, okay?" And coming out of the 08. Yeah, coming out of the 08-09 generation, I don't need the money, if that makes sense. Vince, I don't want to go borrow money just to borrow money, because these are loans, and I'd rather keep my balance sheet healthy. I've kind of got hay fever. I'm not making sense. Hopefully that made sense to you.
Yeah, it made total sense, and I should have mentioned that. Good point. Caveat: these loans, okay, are forgivable, providing that the organization follows the guidelines prescribed by the federal government. Boy, is that a mouthful.
Yeah.
But with that said, if they do follow those guidelines, it will not be viewed at some point, I don't know how and when, as a loan. It will be what I refer to as dollars from heaven. And we, the taxpayers, will eventually, well, I shouldn't say that, but somebody's going to have to be accountable for this.
Well, yeah, and that's not one of my questions. That's a whole nother interview. But I'll end on just my thinking is, I grew SMB Nation organically. I've certainly had a lending relationship, and I borrowed at times when it makes sense. But in general, I don't like to take the money. You know what I mean? If I don't need it, it messes up my balance sheet a little bit. And then on the forgiveness clause, I have done some reading and saw that, but it's a little bit like the way some students were surprised with student loans that they maybe didn't cross one T and dot one I, and now those student loans aren't forgivable, right? So that scares me. You don't just borrow to borrow money, or at least in my family.
Well, yes, and I'm going to encourage everyone out there to delve into that PPP legislation and see how it applies to you. Okay, it may be a blessing for some and a scourge for others.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I'm seeing mixed feedback up on Facebook. And again, I still have a little work to do on my side, so I'm not knowledgeable completely about my bank, but I'm seeing some feedback up on the Facebook tech groups that at some banks, maybe you can answer this. I believe this to be true. At some banks, you have to have an existing lending relationship with a lender to qualify for the PPP. I don't know if that's in the legislation or the regulations.
That is not in the regulations. That, as I understand it, has become a requirement of the bank.
Right.
So the government, I think, is stepping in to say, no, whether that customer or that potential customer is a customer of yours or not, if they qualify. The big qualifier is you have to have been in business. I think it's February the 15th. I think that's the date. The date that you have to prove that you were in business on or before February the 15th of 2020 in order to qualify for these funds. That is the big step.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. So you can't go make a fictitious corporate entity today on April 10th to go get the money, honey.
Correct. Yeah. And
okay.
Thank God somebody in Washington, again, had a little foresight.
Yeah.
We're talking about all this. I think the good news is hopefully we're on the bottom side of the sign, or the eclipse, or whatever they call it, the apex. I call it the eclipse, only because that's an old computer term. You know that.
Yeah. You're killing me. Well, hey, Vince, let's do this. Let's go ahead and call it good for today, but why don't we talk in about 10 days to 2 weeks, because you're going to have additional updates, and I do want to make this one of our coverage areas, and I want you to get back and do the good work, my friend. I got to go feed the llamas, so, sir, have a fantastic day.
Thank you, Harry, and it was good speaking with you, and stay safe, and happy Easter.
There we go. All righty, you betcha.
Take care.